Hey, welcome to the Press Box Chronicles with Jeff Pearlman. Hey, welcome to the Press Box Chronicles with Jeff Pearlman, the show where a cranky middle-aged sports writer, that is me, who has seen it all, takes you behind the scenes and into the stories. I am your host, Jeff Pearlman. And today we're going to delve into a super fringy but cool subject that has fascinated me for years, and even having the opportunity to talk about him on the show is super cool. It is Lyle Alzado. And if you know who Lyle Alzado is, you probably have an image already in your head. And if you've never heard of Lyle Alzado, picture a insanely muscular, angry-looking 1980s defensive lineman who wants to rip your head off. And that is who Lyle Alzado is. And his saga is one of highs and lows and obscurity and fame and steroids and ultimately tragedy. And that's what we're going to dig into today on the Press Box Chronicles. So, you know how you think oh, it would be amazing to see what's on that guy's browser, right? Like Donald Trump, what would his browser look like? What kind of weird fruit porn would that guy have? Or, whoever, like Elon Musk, what would his browser look like? If you were to look at my browser, I'm not saying you wouldn't find any porn and you wouldn't find any weird sports stuff and you wouldn't find fruit. You'll find a lot of really odd searches for old games and old athletes. If you want to, know someone who watched the Sugar Ray Leonard, Donnie Lalonde fight 7 times, that's me. And recently, one thing that's fascinated me is the August 23rd, 1990 Monday night football game, preseason football game between the Los Angeles Raiders and the Chicago Bears. And the reason this fascinated me at the time and now is because it was the comeback game for 41-year-old Lyle Alzado, the former Denver Bronco, former Cleveland Brown, former Raider defensive lineman. And back in the day, in the 80s in particular, Lyle Alzado was just the embodiment of badass motherfucker. He was a hard-charging lineman. He played some defensive end, moved to the interior, who literally would do anything, would kick an offensive lineman, rip your helmet off, scream at you, threaten your mother, threaten your kids. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to fuck you up. I'm going to fucking fuck you up. That was Lyle Alzado. And in 1990, after 5 years away from the game, at age 41, he decided to make this comeback. And I remember being a kid, I vividly remember being a kid and watching this game, just fascinated by the very idea of a guy in his 40s, which seemed ancient at the time when I was 18, making an NFL comeback. And Lyle Alzado enters the game late. And there's this moment where the Bears quarterback goes back to pass and he flutters up a pass. And Lyle Alzado, he falls down, gets up, the ball kind of floats into his arms, and he takes off a bunch of yards before he's tackled. And it's this fuck yeah moment for Lyle Alzado. 41 years old. I can do it all. I can do everything. Fuck yeah, fuck yeah, fuck yeah. Now, granted, there was a penalty on the flag. It was called back, but it didn't matter, right? And leading up to this game, all Lyle Alzado had been talking about in the media, in the press, is I'm doing this so I can show older guys that they're not done. I'm doing this to prove that you're not done at 40. I'm doing this to prove blank. I'm doing this to prove that, Y and Z and X and B. I'm doing this to prove what you can do. And I just remember being so inspired and so psyched up and so thrilled. And he would later admit this was all bullshit. Before we dive deep into the bullshit, which would be physically gross, but metaphorically okay, a little background here. Lyle Alzado, a Jewish kid from Brooklyn, born in 1949, grows up on Long Island, which is, and I say this as a Jew from New York, the most Jewish thing ever. Like a Jewish kid from Long Island, Lyle Alzado going to Hebrew school, reading his Haftarah, blah, 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 blah. And Lyle Alzado, growing up, is this kid who likes football. In fact, this kid who loves football, but nobody gives a shit about him. He's not being recruited out of high school. He goes to Lawrence High School in Long Island. Nobody's recruiting kids out of Lawrence High School in Long Island. But he winds up going to Kilgore College, a community college in Kilgore, Texas, plays there for 2 years, actually is asked to leave the team when he defends a black teammate in an argument with a coach, and winds up transferring to Yankton College in South Dakota. And to this point, this is the story of a nothing guy, one of a gazillion football players who comes and goes, right? Yankton College. What are you going to do from Yankton College? Well, when Lyle Alzado is at Yankton College, he's introduced to something that to him is more valuable than money, is more valuable than women, is more valuable than a Porsche or a sweet pad. He's introduced to anabolic steroids. And at Yankton College, Lyle Alzado, like many of his teammates, is just juicing and juicing and juicing and juicing and getting bigger and bigger. And this is an NAIA school in South Dakota. But in 1970, a Denver Broncos assistant coach happens to be at a Yankton game, and he's watching Yankton and Montana Tech play. And he's like, whoa, that guy, the big guy, he can play. And in 1971, the Denver Broncos use a 4th-round pick on Lyle Alzado. And over the course of the next, 7 years, Lyle Alzado becomes a thing. He's big, he's fast. They don't test for steroids at all in the NFL. He's juiced out of his gills. His teammates can't stand him. He's a pain in the ass. He's always up. He's always on. He juices nonstop. If they're like, the cycle is 4 weeks on and then 4 weeks off, he's going 4 weeks on, a week off. Like, he is all in on the steroids. 1977 AFC Defensive Player of the Year. The Broncos go to the Super Bowl. He has 2 sacks against the Cowboys in a loss, but all his teammates hate him because he just won't shut the fuck up. And he's so juiced up and he's so over the top. And he does all these crazy things. He starts appearing in little movies and little commercials. And in 1979, July of 1979, Lyle Alzado boxes Muhammad Ali. They do an 8-round exhibition. And there's this moment in the fight. And I highly, highly recommend, if you have 20 minutes, go to YouTube and put in Lyle Alzado, Muhammad Ali. There's this moment in the fight where Muhammad Ali just pops Alzado, and Alzado goes like this. He goes, like it was nothing. And that's Lyle Alzado. And he's all high on everything, on roids, and he's juiced up and blah, blah, blah. And he's just going, and maybe I'll be a boxer. Well, the Broncos ultimately get tired of him. He's traded to Cleveland. He plays 2 years with the Cleveland Browns. And in April of 1982, Lyle Alzado is sent to the Los Angeles Raiders for an 8th-round draft pick. And Lyle Alzado is made to be a Raider. Like, there's never been a better pairing than football player with team. The Raiders are Al Davis. The Raiders are, cheat on your wife and punch your opponent and chewing tobacco and drinking and steroids, and we're the bad boys of football, the skull. They're just, these are the Raiders, and this is Lyle Alzado. And there's this famous moment. And I say this as a kid who loved the New York Jets as a boy. January 15th, 1983, Lyle Alzado gets in a fight with a New York Jet offensive lineman named Chris Ward. And he literally reaches over and rips his helmet off his head and then throws it at Chris Ward. And it's like, whoa, what the hell? And somehow he didn't get ejected from the game. Anyway, Lyle Alzado is made to be a Raider. And on January 22nd, 1984, Lyle Alzado has the crowning moment of his career. The Raiders demolished the Redskins in the Super Bowl. And Lyle Alzado, he doesn't even play that great, but all he wants to do is win a Super Bowl. And there's this moment captured on film that's just beautiful. Lyle Alzado standing on the sideline, just soaking it all in, and just like, this is it. This is why I did this. And he winds up retiring a few years later, and that leads to his comeback. And he has this comeback. And again, it's 1990, and he's playing in this game against the Bears. I want to prove everybody wrong. I'm going to show the world. And like, it really becomes a story. Like, Lyle Alzado is standing up for the aged. It sounds dumb. He was only 41, but Lyle Alzado is standing up for the aged in America. He's showing older people that you're not done. If you read the LA Times, or you read the Oakland Tribune, or you read the San Francisco Chronicle, or USA Today, there are all these stories about Lyle Alzado's courageous comeback. And there was all this stuff. He looks better than ever. Look at Lyle Alzado. He looks better than ever. This is amazing. Holy shit, Lyle Alzado. And as I said earlier, it was all bullshit. Like, Lyle Alzado would be asked, "Are you using steroids?" And he would get offended. He'd be like, "How can you ask me if I'm using steroids? What the fuck are you talking about? Would I use steroids? Do you think I love this game too much to cheat?"
A lot of people, they'll see that you're 41 years old, you're coming back, you look the way you do, they're going to say, the guy's on steroids.
Oh, that's a joke. You know, that is such a joke. Just because an athlete is built well and he works hard and he trains hard, it doesn't necessarily mean he has to be on steroids.
And it turns out Lyle Alzado was cheating and cheating and cheating. And at this point, during his comeback, not only was he using steroids, he was using human growth hormones. And he was just putting this stuff into his body nonstop. And he looked so freaking ripped. Like the pictures of Lyle Alzado from 1990 are utterly preposterous. I was 41 a decade ago. I could work out for 17 years. Not that, it's me. And I wouldn't get anywhere. No one could get close to this. It was ridiculous. But he kept insisting, I'm not using. And all his teammates knew he was using. Everyone in the NFL knew he was using. All the Raiders knew he was using. But he denied he was using. And when he got cut by the Raiders after that game in 90, they were like, "You're 41. We can't keep you. But maybe down the road." Lyle Alzado sort of graciously said, "You know what? I gave it my all. I showed that you can do it. I just wanted to give it one last try. I'm so proud of myself. I'm so proud of everything I did. And now I'm excited to live the rest of my life." And within 2 years, Lyle Alzado would be dead. So one of my favorite things that I've seen recently, and I'm sure most of you have seen this, is that interview that Mike Tyson did in the lead up to the Jake Paul fiasco fight. When the little girl says to Mike Tyson, "So what do you think your legacy is going to be?" And he basically says, "Legacy? What difference does it make? I'm going to be dead. We're all going to be dead." And I just thought, number one, that's kind of harsh for like a 10-year-old kid. But number two, like, what does legacy mean? I really mean this. Like every now and then someone will say, like, "What do you want your legacy as a writer to be?" I'm like, it doesn't matter because I'm going to be dead. Who cares? Like, what difference does it make? And I think for Lyle Alzado, there's something really sad in Mike Tyson's response and some truth to that. And maybe this video could actually do something in that regard. On July 8th, 1991, Lyle Alzado, a gaunt, shriveled, bandana over his head, Lyle Alzado, appeared on the cover of Sports Illustrated. And the headline to the article, which he wrote, a first-person article, was, "I'm sick and I'm scared." The subhead was, "The author, a former NFL star, has a dreaded disease that he blames on his use of performance-enhancing drugs." And the lead to his story was, "I lied. I lied to you. I lied to my family. I lied to a lot of people for a lot of years when I said I didn't use steroids. I started taking anabolic steroids in 1969, and I never stopped. Not when I retired from the NFL in 1985, not ever. I couldn't. And then I made things worse by using human growth hormone too. I had my mind set, and I did what I wanted to do. So many people tried to talk me out of what I was doing, and I wouldn't listen. And now I'm sick. I've got cancer, a brain lymphoma, and I'm in the fight of my life." And it was one of the most heartbreaking, yet in a way inspirational pieces I think the magazine has ever run. Lyle Alzado, a year and some change after making this comeback, is dying of cancer. And he, even though there was no scientific proof, he chalked it up to years and years and years of putting this shit in his body, putting steroids, putting growth hormones, not listening to doctors, not using it at desired times, but just all balls to the wall is using this. And he put it all out there. And then Lyle Alzado started doing these TV interviews, again, looking gaunt. He talked about wanting to fight some guy, but not having the strength to do it. He talked about walking down the aisle for his wedding and limping because he wasn't right. He talked about the emotional decay of having cancer. And he talked about specifically, "I never should have done any of this. I regret doing this. I regret playing football because football led me to steroids and growth hormones, and steroids and growth hormones led me to this point in my life." And I don't know, Sports Illustrated has had a lot of covers through the years, had a lot of great covers through the years. But to me, that has to be one of the top 5 because it actually meant something to people. And when you bring up Lyle Alzado nowadays to people who remember him, the number one thing they actually talk about is him speaking out about his steroid use and his performance enhancing drug usage and what it did to him, not just as a player, but how it destroyed him. And on May 14th, 1992, Lyle Alzado died of brain cancer, and he was 43 years old. And I have in front of me an obituary. It says, Alzado dies from cancer at 43. Lyle Alzado, once among the most feared players in professional football, died Thursday of brain cancer, a disease he blamed on his prolonged use of bodybuilding steroids. The two-time All-Pro defensive lineman died peacefully in his sleep at home. His wife, Kathy, was at his side. He was 43. The disease reduced a mountainous athlete known for his bone-jarring violence on the field to a whispering shell of a man. Alzado had come to Portland in March for an innovative blood-brain barrier chemotherapy treatment pioneered at Oregon Health Science University. He was able to receive the therapy only once before he came down with pneumonia, a common side effect. And the interesting thing, I think for most former football players, being described as a whispering shell of a man would feel humiliating. But I bet if Lyle Alzado were here now and he was able to read his obituary and read how much of it focused on what steroids and growth hormones did to him, I think he would be incredibly pleased. And I also think he would feel like maybe, just maybe, his final act made an impact. And to me, it's always heartbreaking what some athletes surrender for the moment of glory, for the moment of money, not realizing that what they're giving up is their longevity and the rest of their life. That is a wrap for this episode of Press Box Chronicles with Jeff Pearlman. Please leave a comment below on what stories you'd like to hear more about, or if there's a sports figure you're interested in, just let me know. Make sure you like and subscribe and follow me on TikTok at Jeff Pearlman Author and on Bluesky at Jeff Pearlman. Thank you so much for diving behind the scenes and digging into the story. We will see you next time on Press Box Chronicles.